Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. I am once again your host, Andrew, back with the show again. Back this time. Oh, my microphone's working. Everything's working, except I did not do my important prep work, which I usually do, which is changing text around and everything. Anyway, we're back here with another edition of Indiepocalypse Radio. We have a full house tonight, full of guests, a full 4 people, so you get to see the oft not seen 4-spot layout, which is, I don't want to startle you. It looks like all the other layouts. But I am, of course, Andrew, your host of Indiepocalypse Radio, the show that is somewhere between your kind of convention hangout and an interview show, I suppose. It is, of course, related to Indiepocalypse being the alternative anthology for the people, whatever you want to call this thing, whatever kind of buzzword. I do enjoy. I still think the best thing I called it once was the home of the unmarketable. And speaking of unmarketable games, perhaps, which I use complimentary, of course, we have plenty of game developers here as well to talk about those aforementioned games. The first guest you may know from Indiepocalypse issue. Now, here's the thing: we have to remember them. Is it 50? No, I was so close. It wasn't 50. It was 49. I was one off with Saltwater. It's Sky. Sky, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, glad to have you on the show. Right off the top of the bat, important question I need to ask of all Indiepocalypse contributors as my bit of informal marketing. Hey, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
I think it was issue 15, the commission game for that one, Winter. I think I found that one on itch.
Yeah.
And then I found out about the rest of the Indiepocalypse games through that one.
Yeah, okay, that is a little while ago.
That is an older one. I don't think I found it when issue 15 came out.
Right,
but I did find it through that game.
Oh, much thanks to Frey for the when putting the little link in there. Then a non-requirement of posting. It's the weird thing about making a brand, in that I don't want to make one. So
yeah.
But now if people are unfamiliar with Saltwater, how would you describe it?
Oh goodness, it's quite large. It's quite long. It's this huge, sort of a time loop game almost, piece of interactive fiction about a bunch of different stories that kind of all end in horrible disaster.
Yes. Yes, very long. Just a casual. 3 hours for a video game though. That's short. It's like
I got nothing on the 100-hour RPGs.
Right. It's long for an itch indie game. Short for it's almost as if all these things, putting them in the same category, is very bizarre.
Yeah.
This sort of giant pile of things which all kind of coalesce into this space that we just call video games. But you do a lot of video games, a lot of ones at shorter lengths as well. So going into something, like, okay, I want, like, going to Saltwater, did you know, like, oh, I want this one to be huge, or did it become huge as you made it?
That one spiraled out of control unwittingly.
Right.
I did not intend for it to grow that large, but then I couldn't help myself. It had to keep growing until it reached like 40,000 words or whatever.
Right.
Like 40 illustrations, something like that.
Until eventually you're like, okay, there's like you cannot write this word forever. It has to at a point end. I guess that's also
Since then I've tried putting a better cap on things. Like, okay, let's keep this one to half an hour or
Yes, yes,
15.
your handy like little length guide, which is also like I will say as a someone who plays and curates games, getting a length timer up front extremely handy for me. Of like say if like I can cram in a couple before I go to bed. How long is this game going to be? And go 10 minutes, perfect. 3 hours, I go. I can wait till later.
Yeah,
Um,
that's something that I always run into. I don't want to start something that's like 2 hours long
right.
right as I'm about to go to bed or whatever.
Right, right. But often you're like, wait, how much longer does this go? And then you might do the like if it's a visual novel, for example, you do the little Ren'Py trick of like, let me skip all things and let me just hit tab real quick, and you go, oh my god, this thing it sped through text for like 7 minutes. There was so much left in that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, but but saltwater currently stands alone and within your long games, and then 15 is your like less than 15 is your big chunk there.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
I
you
think short things you can make more of them.
right,
That's
exactly.
what I've learned.
I mean, in a way, that saltwater is a bunch of short things put together, uh,
This is true. This is true.
and then so I guess part of the practice was uh, like, what if those short things were separate?
Exactly. That's what I've stuck to most of the time since then.
And it is like we were talking briefly about books in the pre-show, the secret pre-show, but that's a thing where you can also then take all those things together and be like, hey, I made a quote unquote short story collection of all my 15-minute games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that would be wonderful to do one day, to release it as like one big file dump. Go play all of them.
Yeah,
They're like 10 minutes each.
right. I think that's like it's the weird thing about like I have found in doing this for so long of like the curse that commerce makes people pay attention to things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of like wrapping things up and putting them in this little box and saying that box costs money. People are like, oh, where uh, perhaps putting things up for free, it goes into a giant pile of 10,000 other free things that they never get
Yeah.
around to.
Yeah. I think I heard, I don't know how true this is, but I heard that sometimes people would rather spend like $15 on something to play it as opposed to just downloading it for free,
Right. I
which is
mean,
strange to me, but I think there is some truth to that.
right. There's like that kind of oh, since they're charging money for it, this must have more value.
Exactly, exactly.
That kind of like that fake value proposition of everything.
Hmm.
Which I mean, it doesn't like I don't know. It's an obvious thing that money is made up. It's not real. It's a thing. But I guess so are games. All of it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if
Yeah,
if this one made up thing is attached to another made up thing, it's a more important thing. I suppose.
exactly. That's how you got to market things.
So
That's how
Sky,
you sell things.
what you
That's
gotta do is
business.
say all your games are $10.
There you go. There you go.
And then people will be like, "Oh, well, I gotta pay." Or just don't put them on Steam though. That's the trick, because then they'll be like, "Oh, I just returned. I love this game. It was my favorite game. I returned it because it was only an hour long, and
Putting a
I can play the entire thing and return it."
putting a 2 hour loading screen at the top of my 15-minute game.
Yes,
Go sit through that first.
just just trick them and like, oh, well, make sure you have a lot of like scrolling tooltips. Maybe there's like a little mini game there. A small brick breaking game. Like, when's this game? It's got to be really good if it's if it's taking this long to load. It must be like the best looking game in the world. And then it's like, then of course they go, visual novels aren't even real games. All you're doing is reading.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then it's like, jokes on you. You are clicking, are you not?
Clicking is an important form of interaction. I love clicking to progress a story. I think that's beautiful.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like people click at their own like pace. People like some people might use a keyboard. They might plug in a controller and use like a button. Like
Exactly.
you bring your own
There's
method
so
of
much
clicking into
joy.
things as well.
I think it's so fun. You get to
Yeah, you get to like I mean, there's also like this inherentness of like the pacing of it, and like the form factor where it's like, you know, you can read books at your own pace too, but you can also like open to any page in a book whenever you want.
Mhm.
Whereas like games work at your own pace, but you can't just be like, I want to look at hour 3 now. I want to look at hour 6 now.
Yeah, I do think there is something kind of special about that format, like the kind of visual novel slash
Yeah.
sometimes also interactive fiction format where you get like a little piece of text and then another little piece of text when you click a little bit later.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that helps me with reading comprehension. I feel like I can sit down and
Right.
look through for like 7 hours straight.
And
I don't
you
know if I could do that with a book in my hands.
right. And you're right. There's like something about like it's your classic, if you can do anything for 15 minutes or whatever. It's you can read any line if it's 12 words long, and now here's 8,000 12-word sentences in a row.
Hmm.
I think it's the same way sometimes people will like I can't watch a movie, but I will watch 16 episodes of this TV show. Where
Yeah,
because
I
those,
feel. I feel.
yeah, right, because you're like, oh, they're all just like 20-minute chunks. It's very easy to watch one 20-minute thing and then another 20-minute thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how did you get into the process of game development, and what made you be like, I want to make visual novels primarily, or things within the
Oh,
visual novel, interactive fiction. When I'm not going to get mired down into the definitions of what those are and are not.
yeah. Who cares? Who
Right.
cares? Um, I think it mostly came from playing a lot of games and a lot of visual novels and a lot of stories online, especially like the real multimedia ones.
Yeah.
I really like big multimedia projects, and I thought those were so cool. And then at some point, I was like, okay, let's throw my hand in the ring. I feel like I could do this. And
Yes.
it took a while, but then I did. So it worked.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like the niceness of games and engines, and especially something that is just like visuals and text, for instance. Like you don't have to worry about having like intense PCs, and I feel like even now there's like enough like legacy PCs, like you or inherited computers, people have more or less
Hmm.
of like, oh yeah, you don't have to be, it's not like whatever 30 years ago where people were being like, I'm the first street of my house that has a computer.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I think that is kind of the beautiful part about games that you can run in a browser as well. I think
yeah,
most of mine you can run in a browser and have like at least an okay time with it because then you don't have to worry about computer specs. It
yes,
just
right,
kind of works,
yeah, and yeah,
hopefully.
and you can, sometimes it doesn't work the easiest, but you can just do it on play them on a phone often too. I've encountered plenty of people like at like gaming conventions, who are like, "Oh, I don't own a computer."
Oh my goodness.
They're
Yeah.
like, "I only have consoles," or I only have phones or whatever.
I
Uh,
hope there's somebody out there who read all 3 hours of salt water on their phone because you
right,
can do that.
right, and but you can't like save on browser, can you? Right,
Yeah, that's tricky. I think different things have different ways of handling that.
right.
Like I think Renpy, Renpy browser games, however you pronounce that. I think you can like import export saves from that, but I don't know. I've
Right.
never given one to try.
Yeah, I've always assumed it's RenPy on account of Python. Uh,
Hmm.
kind
I
of
like
that
Renpy though. Renpy
lineage.
sounds better.
Yeah, you're right. But also, it's a made up word that people change. It's like it's the same reason I hear plenty of people say Zine. Um,
Oh, I say Zine. That's my guilty pleasure.
right. It's a truly guilty pleasure because you're guilty of language crimes because it's short for magazine. Not to, or do you also say magazines?
Now I gotta start saying magazines. Yeah,
Yes.
I think I'd rather say magazines than accept like zine.
Right.
Oof.
Right. Right. But it's also like whatever. All words are made up inherently. We don't have to worry about those sorts of things. Um.
Exactly.
Uh. Oh. Yes, he's singing. Someone said a note for them to remember in the chat. We also have other things. Friend of the show. This is not a chat focused show, but when I see friends of the show in the chat, I usually that's how you get acknowledged. If you want Andrew to recognize you in chat, you should be in Indiepocalypse. Chimera, the previously mentioned, talking about un, intense, unreal visual novels with bloom and excessive graphic card requirements. Have you ever considered getting into that? Just the most intense. Yes,
I
within.
have one of my visual novels repeated back to me. It's in like the 15-minute category.
Yeah.
That's a Unity one. That one has like bloom and parallax. That
Ooh.
one's crazy. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Right. Because you could still like do a lot with like what they have to offer. Um. Yeah. Because now when you do that, did you make use like a stock isn't the right word, but like because I know a lot of these engines also have like I know Unreal has different like what you call like tools from like hey, this is a tool for building a visual novel.
Yeah, yeah. I think for this project, yes, I did. I used a tool called Yarn Pile.
Okay,
That one was quite good. I had a lot of fun with that.
that makes sense because I feel like the Unity one is called Yarn Spinner or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think this was built on top of Yarn Spinner, which is built on top of Yarn.
Right, which is probably built on top of like RenPy or something, or who knows, or Twine. Like at least like conceptually, if not like literally,
Hmm.
which is always like but that's also like the nice thing of talking about the ease of design. You can just go to any engine and someone's like, oh, we kind of soft replicated this one engine inside of another one.
I think
So
that's wonderful. I think
right,
that's wonderful.
because some of these things
I love
like
tools.
yeah, tools are like imagine if you like wanted to paint but like you had to make all the ink and the canvas and everything yourself. Uh, that would be like a massive barrier.
Hmm.
I mean,
Something that I find with tools is that there's usually a point where you want to do something that's kind of outside of the scope of that tool,
yeah,
and then you're like, okay, how do I hack this thing together to do this thing that's just like slightly outside of the scope of what this was made for, and then it all falls apart.
yes,
So more tools is always good, I think.
right. But that's also the beauty of you know you're recognizing your own skills. Where you're like, well, I want to be able to do things that this thing can't do, and almost getting there sometimes actually fully getting there. Um, but yeah, so what made you decide to give switching over to trying Unreal? Um,
Oh goodness. I, I've not. That was not Unreal. That was Unity.
oh right,
And since then, I
Unity.
stopped doing that. Stopped touching that. I don't know. I like jumping around. I think it's fun working in different places and
Right,
different things.
because you
Always
because
have
you
their advantages.
because you worked in Godot as well. Um,
Yes, I've done one in Godot. I think a few in RenP and a few in Ink as well.
yeah, and, that's and do you come from a like programming like what would you say your main artistic background is coming into games?
Oh goodness, I think um, probably a combination of like programming, art, and writing. I feel like
Okay.
I've always been a bit interested in those three, so I kind of have those all in my tool belt.
Perfect. I mean, programming is probably the most handy one to have coming into coming into games. Saves you a lot of overhead stress, but having one of the other ones sometimes, it's the kind of weird thing where, like, say you're coming in as like a good program that allows you to like make games better more easily, but
Hmm.
if you're like coming in as like a strong illustrator or something, that's like a better public facing skill. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's an interesting like of how these skill sets are different versus like the behind the scenes and the public facing skill sets.
Hmm. Everyone's skills gives them like a set of limitations. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's less skills to me and more like what are the limitations that you're working under?
Right.
And
What
then
are
I think
right.
that's what makes it interesting.
Because not especially where a thing is bare minimum at least two things smashed together. There's always like the difficulties of like what can I not do, because there's always gonna be something you can't do.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm. I
and
used
about
to be that way with music. I was like, I can't do music. I can't do this. I'm going to find sounds from somewhere else and just
right,
use those instead.
and then I'm assuming then you eventually did, but you have like also tried your hand at music as well. Uh,
Yeah, I got so stubborn. I was like, okay, I've had enough of the free sounds I can find online.
right.
Time to
Uh,
figure this one
I've heard too many of these songs in other people's games as well.
out. I got
uh,
my $10 uh, thrift store keyboard, plugged that into my computer, and made like three soundtracks out of it.
yeah,
There you go.
that's all. I mean, all you need is once you start plugging things into computers, all you need is the cheapest instruments you can find, and that I mean, they still play music. You know,
Exactly.
you can play
Exactly.
you can play music on anything. Play music on. Listen, we don't have time to talk about how you can play music on saws and buckets and anything one can find handy. I think I've seen a singing saw once in life, being performed on. It's an odd thing. Um,
Oh,
I,
that sounds strange.
it could also be like that one person's very specialized skill. I'm not sure because it was I believe that guy who was also in Neutral Milk Hotel doing a thing on his own. So and that's the
Yes.
singing style that is front of mind for me. Um, but I've got a couple other questions, guys. We approach the end of our segment here. Uh,
Cool.
First up, and these are, of course, just questions that people would send in for a long time until they became standard parts of the show because I like asking people these two questions. They're good. They're good, like weird tests that the results I cannot quantify, but I like asking them. And the first one is, what's your
Mhm.
favorite type of rock?
Um, I like slate. I like the kind of slate that you can kind of tear apart with your hands.
Okay.
I like destruction.
Yes, right. I mean, part of the nice things about rocks is that you can throw them and break them.
Exactly.
It's like,
You can break things with the rocks. You can break the rocks.
yes,
I love breaking things.
we used to one of our favorite used to take. I think they're probably slate kind of rocks or slate. They're like those like adjacent that would be on like railroad tracks, and we would throw them at graffiti, and like be like, hey, I bet you can't hit that part, and just chucking railroad rocks at graffiti.
There you go. That's the joy of rocks.
Yeah,
That's like their main purpose.
right. To throw at things. What is youth if you're not smashing windows in abandoned buildings?
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, and the second question, which has been teased within the chat. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
Oh my goodness. I think I like the red one with like the bow. I think I trust her. She gives off like main character energy to
Well,
me. I
great
trust the
news.
main
That's the
character.
main character.
There you go. There you go.
That is,
I
I
love
assume
using
that is of
media
course assuming
literacy.
referring to Reimu, the Shrine Maiden classic main character of Toho. Well,
I trust
perfect.
her. I trust Reimu.
I think that's I don't know the full extension of personalities and trustability, but I think trustability is high there. No trickster energy. But
There
Sky,
you go.
thank you for joining me here on the show today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
We're gonna go on break right now, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes and 48 seconds. See you on the other half of that amount of time, approximately.
Exactly.
Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Screaming Females with Normal. We have our next guest here, coming in. Who you may know if you cast your mind way back to this one. I'm not going to remember the number of. Where's my little page? Where's my little cheat sheet? There you are. I have a bunch. To issue 23 of Indiepocalypse with In the Hollow Valley, or more recently with the forthcoming Bundle of Joy. It's Nicholas O'Brien. Nicholas, how are you doing today?
I am good, Andrew. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and it's great to be back. I am. It's like kind of incredible thinking that it's been so long.
That's
But yeah,
only 29, nope, 39 months.
yeah, yeah. I know. I was. You asked Sky how they first encountered an apocalypse, and I was like really trying to think back what that was. I was like trying to go back through.
Yeah, do you remember now? I wasn't going to ask you because I'm sure you entered this, 38 months ago. So
Yeah, I think well, it'd be funny to go back and like listen to that episode, but I feel like my memory of it was that I had seen maybe like issue one or two because you were bundling it with Nathalie Lawhead's Bean Maker.
yes, that
Um,
started very early on, like around like
right.
3 or 4 or so.
Totally, totally. That must have been, yeah. And I remember I was like a big fan of their work and like was following what they were doing. I feel like that they must have posted about how the Electric Sea Maker was being included in Indie Apocalypse, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this? Like, I should really check this out." And then yeah, I've just been like following the project since then, and yeah, that's my memory of it. But
Yes,
I'm really
but
I
yeah,
wonder if I answered differently.
right. Who knows? We're not here, but also we're not here to talk about my projects. That's not what that's not. I mean, we are in for the very first minute or so when I ask guests, so I know how to continue to find more contributors, um, which is the important thing.
That's
We're,
right.
we're here to talk about guests about the things that they do as part of the continuing Magfest guest pool that will extend
Hmm.
until at least I think June. Um, not consecutively. More like there was one guest who like we can't do anything till like June, and we're very
Wow.
busy until then. Um, but you were there not just to hang out for the 24-hour party that is, or the 72-hour party technically, I suppose, that is Magfest. You were there with a game that previously mentioned Bubbles of
I
Joy.
was.
If people don't know what that
Yes.
is, how what would you say to describe it?
Yeah. I would describe it as a WarioWare style game, but you play as a new dad. So it's a bunch of small mini games where you're doing kind of micro activities and micro tasks, child rearing tasks,
Yeah,
like plunging baby's nose or changing a diaper or cutting baby's nails or giving them a bath. And in between all of those moments, there's these kind of narrative vignettes that are reflections of all of the emotional changes that happen in those first couple of months of taking care of a kid.
perfect. So I mean, so really, like any seasoned game developer, uh, you've entered the point of getting into making dad games. of course.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I'm following a long tradition of um, feeling as though that other people would like to suffer through the same experience that I suffered through. No, I think I think initially I was like interested in making this game because I didn't really know like where to like put a lot of the excess emotional energy that I had from like becoming a parent,
Right.
and I made a prototype of this game that was like much more of a walking simulator and much more of like a very very straightforward like narrative kind of choose your own adventure, not quite a visual novel, but much more of a very straightforward narrative game.
Right.
But it had these like very small mini game sections in them that are much different, that were actually also not about child rearing tasks at all. They were just more about like kind of contemplation and taking a break. Um, but I realized I just really liked making those more than I liked making the narrative game thing that I was making.
Right.
So I changed things up and went through this kind of like radical redesign and uh, showed a prototype of this kind of mini game idea to a couple of friends and people that like whatever follow my work, and they were like, "This is really fun and funny and endearing, and you should like keep going in this direction." And I was like, "Okay, cool."
Right. Because
So yeah,
it's a like it's a familiar approach. The you, I mean, even at Magfest, you weren't even the only WarioWare inspired game at Magfest.
that's true. Yeah, Mindweave was there, and there was another game that I saw. Shoot, I can't remember the name of the game now, but it had these kind of micro game vignettes in
Yeah.
it. But yeah, Mindweave was like the kind of big one there.
Oh, was
They
that?
had a huge booth.
I was gonna say, was that the like the music one? Had the like the one with the
Yeah.
band?
Oh, is it? I actually don't really know. It's funny. I don't really know much about that game besides it is like a mini game, micro game thing. It's like very much in the. It's much more in the vein of WarioWare than my game actually
Right.
is. Like it has
Right.
these like very specific timers and these very specific beats.
Oh no,
Um,
I was talking about like the third game that you couldn't remember.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, which one? The one where you were playing as a band. What was the
Yes.
name of that game?
Oh, I'm blanking on. I mean the makers are Lemon Boy. I'm blanking. I have their sticker on my desk
Oh
somewhere. I
yes,
think.
yes, yes.
I
I think
just
you're right, actually.
well, I know I can say 100%. I know the band's name is Lemon Boy. I just forget what I'm
Oh,
blanking
funny.
on what the name is. Punk Juice.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
but
I think
that
that's
that's
right.
like a perfect. I mention all these other games because they're a perfect example of how like, and I've talked. I feel like this is if if someone was like a fastidious listener to this show, you can like any good podcast, you can track like my mental obsessions throughout the things and see how they ebb and flow.
Yeah, totally.
And this was like I've been thinking, about genre and like those. If like using our way of talking about games, which is to say like, oh, it's a micro game WarioWare, like
Hmm.
but all three of those games are so radically different than one another and have different goals and different presentations. Um,
Yeah,
but
totally, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I think that that's like something that that was really apparent to me at Magfest because, and this is not a slight against any of the other games by any means, but like
yeah,
Mindweave had like several rows deep of people waiting to like play their game. It was like in a corner booth. It was like very popular. It's had a very, very popular and successful Kickstarter. It's a very polished experience, and it's really fun, and it's super like I really like the visual graphics of it. It has
yeah,
kind of a hand drawn quality to it. Um, yeah, super fun. It's really animated. It's very quirky. But it is like in the experience of what I played of it, it's like kind of like a one for one uh, of WarioWare. It's kind of like almost, and again, I don't mean this to be such a slam, but it
Right.
is kind of a reskinning of that like game loop. As far as my experiences, I don't know what the finished product will be. Um, so as a result, it's like super familiar. Like it feels really like, oh yeah, this is like I know this type of game.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, my game Bundle of Joy is like it does have those familiar elements where you're like, oh, I'm rushing against the clock, and I like got to finish this thing in like a short amount of time, and there's like a little bit of stress going on, and you can fail things, and you know, but when you fail mini games in Bundle of Joy, you don't like lose a life or something. You go to this like stress out corner where you perform a much more slower contemplative mini game that then like recenters you and like allows you to go back and try to continue to take care of your kid.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like I said, like the content of the game is like much more specific and like focused and yeah, it has this like very uh, particular kind of like outcome and messaging. Yeah,
Yeah, and then that's like the difference in like, intent and genre, of
for sure.
which makes for, interesting approaches to things, like where it's like, oh yeah, no, I like someone's like, no, I want to make like a straight ahead, I'm wondering, games will truly reach it like will become the true elevated art form once stuff like that is thought of as genre, because it's like if you compare them to other art forms, those are
Mm,
very much like what you would think of as genre works. They're they're working in very familiar spaces. They kind of, and it's saying as someone who loves slices of genre all the time. Um,
totally.
there's, but it's like it's working within like I'm sure everyone will take their own definition of what genre means to them. But it exists in my mind as like, I don't know. It's one of those things I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I see it.
Hmm.
Um, when I say
Yeah, for sure.
genre.
And I think like just like in other kind of genre based media, it's kind of like it's nice that I feel like we're maybe approaching a space where like all this stuff can kind of exist simultaneously. Whereas I feel like there used to be such like flags planted. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh no, this thing owns this game loop or owns this mechanic or owns
Right.
this like concept or something. And it's like, oh no, like those now are types, right? I mean, you're even seeing that with like, oh, there's like Balatro type games, and it's like, oh, well, that's like actually kind of maybe good that we've moved into that space where like people are inspired by those game loops and by those mechanics and
Right.
by whatever the like number crunching that game like does.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I want to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
And then I was I was just gonna say no. I was going to be mean, but maybe I'll err on the side of. Or what if I just said is some of that is also a creatively bankrupt copying,
Yeah, I mean, there's
which
like,
is
I mean, that's the dark side of it. That's like, I think, yeah, there's also just like asset flipping, right? And like,
yeah,
I think if you're like very in a very cynical frame of mind, you could say like, oh yeah, that's genre based game design, right? And it's
right,
like, no, that's much different, right? Like, I think that's a kind of a cynical um like way of thinking about exactly what you're talking about, right? Which is
right.
like more that there's like space for different types of game ideas and game mechanics and game loops to exist simultaneously, and they're all pulling from maybe similar wells, but with like very, very different outcomes and results. Yeah.
Right. It really depends in a lot of ways of like how perhaps like integral to the core experience it's being borrowed. Talking to our first guest, Guy, visual novels do not offer a lot in the way of gameplay variation. But a lot of them are also not strictly expressing their core artistic heart through gameplay, you know. But you know, where something where maybe like the gameplay is all of it. If then you then replicate 90% of that gameplay, what have you yourself brought, you know, or you just like how many? I don't think I've ever picked up a Vampire Survivors like and been like, this is not just Vampire. This you didn't you brought nothing here. You have offered nothing.
Right. 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 But I mean, it's like that's so interesting. That's like such a good reference point because I feel like Vampire Survivors was like already ribbing from like the genre of like idle games and
Yeah.
like incremental games and like that those already and it was kind of like adding basically like RNG and like kind of roguelike elements to it, but it to me at its core it still feels like a kind of like a cookie clicker, you know what I mean? Like
Yes. Like asking the eternal question that people have been asking for almost nigh on a decade is like, what if we made Cookie Clicker a worse game? And
yeah.
they've been answering that question. Yeah, for 12 years now, people have been boldly coming up and making new games every day that says, "What if Cookie Clicker was worse?" And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Vampire Survivors
But like
did it. Everyone's going to do it.
right, right. But like to your point about genre, right? It's like, you know, contrast whatever Vampire Survivors in whatever like being an offshoot of that
Yeah.
genre to something like Universal Paperclips, right? Where like it's totally a cookie clicker game. It's totally an incremental game. It's totally an idle game, but it has this like kind of the content of that has this kind of like weird dark undertone
Right.
of like the ways in which automation culture creates like asynchronous warfare and uh,
Yeah, and
dangerously hyper intelligent AI and stuff,
and
you know, like or
that's
irresponsibly intelligent. Yeah.
that is a lot of what like Cookie Clicker and like how contemporary is Candy Box to Cookie Clicker. I feel like
Um,
they're in the same like um yeah about two oh they're about the same time.
oh, really?
Yeah, they both came out in 2013. Um,
Whoa.
like Cookie Clicker, yes, that's what I thought. Cookie Clicker is after Candy Box. Um, like
Oh, funny.
a few months after Candy Box, but those ones a lot of they brought is like a, and they're both French too. I wonder if they know
Oh,
each
that's
other.
funny.
Not to say all French people know each other, but it's like a weird coincidence that they happen to both be, you know.
Were they both students at the time too? I
Uh,
know that I remember my memory of Candy Box when it came out that it was made by. I remember it was like headlines being like this student made like idle game is blah blah blah. Like I
yeah,
remember there was like or whatever, not advertisements, but like articles that were about like yeah. Anyways,
perhaps I'm not sure. I don't know the
yeah, yeah,
could not track down. I'm not gonna sit around and tracking down, you know, Ortiel's age.
yeah,
Uh,
yes,
but
yeah,
it is like occupies in like fascinating of it being like you can see like the commercialization come for those like that like when you see a new genre so to speak emerge, you can see like, oh, none of these like 90% of these things do not have the spark of like what makes them interesting, you know,
totally,
because
totally,
both of those games have like a weirdness around them, you know, and like
for sure.
exist within the like in conversation with this idea of idle gaming and like have stuff going on in meta, like, you know, Candy Box. Like let me do some more mathing real quick. um yeah, yes, Candy Box feels more in conversation with like frog fractions than
Sure.
like idle gaming necessarily, of
Right.
like meta mysteries and kind of like interweaving kind of, or like emerging kind of narratives and those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Game,
Yeah.
games that
Like
have a greater depth than you're aware of.
totally. I was just about to say like a cult like lore
Yeah.
surrounding them. Yeah.
But then then it's like, and that's the genre thing. But then those kind of like the interesting essences get ripped away from them, and what the takeaway is like, oh, you make numbers go up, so let's make games where numbers go up, because that's the
Right.
gameplay of them.
Right. Right. Right.
And that
Totally.
it's similar for like a lot of genres, and I mean that's part of the weirdness you run into with the poor preservation of games, where that's where you get a lot of quote unquote spiritual successors,
Mm-hmm.
that are just kind of like saying their worst versions of the things that they're spiritually succeeding is mean, but also they're not that in a lot of cases. They're like these weird pale reflections of like their influence, but they exist where X game is not readily available.
Mm-hmm.
So it's people like, oh, I loved Arrow the Acrobats. Now I'm playing the Arrow the Acrobats spiritual sequel. That is, I had to think of a game that nobody would actually make a spiritual sequel to, so I was not like throwing unnecessary shade at a game, unless there is. Apologies to someone working on the spiritual successor to Arrow the Acrobat.
Yeah, they've just closed their laptop and
I'm so
are going to take a long walk. Yeah.
Sunsoft is back. I know Sunsoft is back. I think, right? Give me. Did they make it or just publish it? Okay, they did make it. No, Guana made it. I didn't think. I knew. Anyway, no, we're not getting bogged into the. Nicholas, who's your favorite mascot platformer with attitude? Do you have one?
Oh, do I have a mascot? I would say maybe I feel like a really cheesy answer, like a earnest cheesy answer here. I really like. I've been playing like the original Sonic games with
Yeah.
my kid, and I feel like I've regained appreciation for the original sprite animations of those games.
Yeah.
Um, they're like so unnecessarily sassy, um, and so of their time. They're like so, yeah, like this kind of like dude, like
Yeah. Well, he taps your foot if you're taking too long.
exactly, yeah. There's that, but there's also this kind of like I could do anything. This kind of like cavalier kind of like I don't ever actually get injured. Like I'm actually just like totally cool.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's my like kind of like earnest like very sincerely earnest answer. I also was like a really big fan of the Rayman games.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that like some of the platforming in some of those games is just like really like interesting and fun and yeah, free flowing.
It's an extremely like I I don't know if there is there now genre snobs, and this is the answer for genre snobs. Is there a genre term for like Euro platformers? Because Rayman is it's the kind of games that have large open spaces full of a bunch of bullshit that you have to collect.
Right.
That kind of.
I think it would just be like collectathon, right? Like would you put like rare games in that category too?
Well, I'm specifically thinking 2D.
Yeah.
Because I think navigating that concept in a 2D versus a 3D space is very different.
Uh-huh.
Like the
Yeah.
2D in a way makes it denser because you have to deal with so much like vertical space that generally you wouldn't think of in dealing with like in a 3D environment. Like there's more room for to like not be able to comfortably navigate a space. Like
Right.
for them to be maze-like.
Right.
Because I feel also a lot of them are also like maze-like. I did not realize that this collection is called Sunsoft is Back. I was not intending to do unofficial advertising for Sunsoft. I was simply proclaiming that
That's really
Sunsoft.
why you brought me on here. Yeah, I'm actually a sponsored spot
Yeah.
on the radio show.
For Sunsoft.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone go out. Tell me, what is your favorite Sunsoft game? Let me know. What's your favorite?
Yeah, get in the chat. Get in the comments.
Yeah, get in the comments. Tell me. We're talking about old Japanese developers. What's your favorite game from Human Entertainment? Tell me about Takara. Is Takara still around? I don't know.
I don't know. I have no clue.
People, kids these days, you all have to get kids these days, I say to you,
Yeah, right.
Takara's been funked by 2006. And you got to get into your history, game history. That's my other thing that I've been being a drum about constantly. It's like, folks, go play old games.
Yeah. Well, it's getting harder. It's like getting so hard. Though, yeah, it is getting harder. Yeah.
Or
I don't know. Maybe.
not if you have all these games in your house and you're legally dumping them for 24 hours. It's very easy to play them. Wink.
That's true. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Yes. Not. Yeah. Actually, that's not part of this paid spot.
Yeah, I know.
That's on your own time.
If you ever have trouble like finding games, I have this friend. His name is Vim. He has like a full collection. He'll like loan you any game you want, basically.
Really? Wow.
He's got you covered.
Cool.
He'll hook you up with your copy of Utsurun Desu Kawasu Hawaii Ikiko, of course, the Sunsoft game made by an Otterman. Of course, it's an anime or manga licensed game. Is there an anime of this? I don't know. Anyway, it looks terrible. Looks like shit. Oh wait.
Still go play them.
Actually, I'm looking at this and I think this is actually very fun. Oh my, anyway. I'm thinking about this game. It's got a link to Hardcore Gaming 101, which is always like, if you're looking up a game, and the first couple of links are like Hardcore Gaming 101 and Bad Game Hall of Fame. You were like looking at the best game you've ever heard of. These are exceptional markers of quality.
Yeah.
But anyhow, oh my god, we're approaching the end.
Way off. Oh yeah, we are. Oh my goodness, yes.
I don't know if I don't know when I started these questions, and like any true podcast editor, I do not remember things I said on the show a week ago. Never mind, 39 months ago. So
right.
I'm going to ask you again. Maybe you don't remember. Maybe your life has changed since then. 39 months is a long time for a person to change.
Truly.
So I need to know, what's your favorite type of rock?
Oh, I like a good skipping stone. A really nice flat pebble. Yeah, that's been like well worn, that I can get like a couple hops off of.
Yes.
That's like, I really like skipping stones. And funnily enough, that was one of the mini games in the initial prototype of what became Bundle of Joy was a stone skipping mini game. So yeah, I love a good flat. It doesn't have to be oval. It can be triangular. Triangular is also very good.
Yeah.
For skipping. Something you can really kind of like get your wrist into,
Right. Just a stone that can skip,
yeah, non-discriminate, yeah, shape, size, preferably not too much heft because it's got to get over that water. But
Right. It can't just sink. That would do no one any good.
no, that's just then you're just plunging stuff into the ocean, yeah, or river or pond or any body of water. Yeah, it's got to skip.
Perfect. And second question: do you have a favorite Toho character?
You know what? I really don't.
So
I
clearly,
like
I didn't
don't
ask you this
know.
question originally, or else you would have prepared for it.
No, I would have definitely prepared. I'm like not super. I'll be very honest. I'm like not very super familiar with that franchise. They're like shmups. I think like the ones that I've experienced, right? Like some of them
Yes. Yeah.
are
So
yes. Okay.
to crunch the history down, of course, Toho by June, the Toho proper is a long running bullet hell franchise. So of course, the first game was a brick breaking game. Um,
Right.
but it also has a vibrant fan game scene,
Mm.
like extremely vibrant and like commercial, also like with plenty of like commercial fan games, which is kind of like
Wow.
the the like
I'm
the
looking at the list of the games
oh
now. There's
yeah,
like, yeah.
there's a ton of
Wow.
mainline Toho games on their own. Never to mind all the non
They have
mainline
great
games.
names. Hopeless Masquerade.
Yes.
That
Oh
sounds great.
yes. No. I mean exceptional naming on
Urban
these things.
Legend, Urban Legend and Limbo. That also sounds like really great. Wily Beast and Weakest Creature. I mean,
The
I
first
think
one,
that
the
some of
first
the
one is called Highly Responsive to Prayers, which is a thing. I am all exceptional. All I'm saying is, Nicholas, I'm hoping getting you Toho pilled today. You're
yes,
gonna go home.
yes,
You're gonna learn all about Reimu and her friends and enemies, and you'll come back with an answer for me in
yes.
at some point in the
I
future.
will. I will retroactive. Yeah, the next time if I ever get invited back, the next time I will have a thoroughly prepared answer with detailed reasons and rationale.
Well, my rule. I mean, the rule is the first time that's fine. The second time you're a warning. The third time, if you don't know a Toho, if you don't have an answer, you get pre-screened, and you don't have an answer.
Yeah.
You're not allowed on the
Yes,
show.
yes.
Uh,
Yeah. That's totally fine. Yes.
but
I think that that's fair. I think
yeah,
that that's
so
very fair.
I mean, at the very least, you got to go off and watch Bad Apple.
Yeah.
That'll
I think
get you
Oh, is
attuned.
that where that's from? Is
Yeah,
that where that's
Bad
Oh, okay.
Apple's
Okay.
Toho.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Now I feel like I'm connecting the dots. Okay.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
slowly connecting the Toho in your brain. You are looking around and you're seeing that actually you actually have a little Cherno in your room right
Like a
now.
plethora of knowledge, I feel like now that I know that. Yes. Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
it's that you've reached the twist at the end of the movie where actually you see everything there the entire time. Toho has always been in your life.
Right. I'm like wearing now the sunglasses in They
Yes,
Live, and I see
exactly.
Toho everywhere.
Right. All you
Yeah.
see is Marissa. Anyhow, um, Nicholas, thank you for joining me here today. We're going on break.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew.
No
Thanks,
problem.
everybody.
We'll be back in like 2 minutes, 29 seconds. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
Was Self Defense Family with Certainty of Paradise. We are here back with more guests from. I have too many freaking windows open. I have so many windows open. With another guest here who you may. Oh, then now here is. Oops, I forgot to. I'm on the wrong thing. There we are. With another guest who you may know from issue 48 of Indiepocalypse with Around. It's Abby. Abby, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I'm going on vacation tomorrow. I'm driving from Chicago to Vermont for like 8 hours. I'm stopping in Buffalo to see Niagara Falls, and
Okay.
I'm bringing my cat with me in the car.
Is the cat going to see Niagara Falls, or is that too much for a cat?
She's gonna be in the hotel,
Okay.
but she is gonna be in Vermont, like yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I'm excited for that. I've been working pretty intensely, so it's like the first break that I've taken like in a while.
Yes,
Since maybe like the holidays, yeah.
it's like I've never taken, I think, an actual vacation in my life, um, but that's also why I don't work on the weekend and don't work 2 hours before I go to bed. Like I carve out my little breaks because that's the killer is that so you just burn yourself out, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I also don't work on the weekend,
It's-
and have very specific work time allotted, but this week I was doing a lot to sort of get a build to a friend because I think I
Right.
haven't really tested in like half a year. But yeah, I don't know. So that's what's up. So I'm happily on vacation now.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I occasionally I'm doing more and more conventions, which are in the way kind of like vacations to me because I don't have to go to my regular job. Uh,
Mhm.
but then I'm still working at those things. But I guess I'm doing things that I like, and I get to eat different food. But we're to get into the game of it all. I cannot ask. I need to ask you in a slight variation of the Indiepocalypse question because around was a commissioned game for Indiepocalypse 48, which is, did you know what it was when I emailed you? Or you're like, who is this guy?
Well, Indiepocalypse one?
Yes.
Um, I think so. I think so because you've had like other people from the Game Center do stuff
Yes.
for Indiepocalypse, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I had heard chatter about it. I think before you emailed me, it was sort of one of those things where it's like I conceptually knew was real, but like when you emailed me, I was like, oh, now this is real,
Right.
like
Right.
in my brain.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of loose name that you're like aware of.
hmm
And then and you're like, oh, okay, now I have to actually register in my brain what this thing is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I registered it, and it's
Yes.
pretty cool. And I actually, I happened upon a tape of Indiepocalypse 48. I didn't know that they existed until I
Oh,
happened upon it.
yes.
Uh, One of my friends sent me her copies of it in the mail because she's been downsizing. But
Okay. Perfect.
yeah, I was like, sure, I'll take that. And she's like, what else do you want? And I was like, I want this other one with the pretty cover. I don't remember which one it was.
I mean
But
that's a hard way to narrow them down. Um, that describes
yeah.
probably a lot of them, half of
Oh
them.
yeah, I think
Well,
she had like 5 of them, and she was like, which ones do you want? And I was like, I
yeah,
want the one that I'm in, and then I want the pretty one.
that's
And
actually
like, I'm sure, I mean,
yeah,
they're all pretty, but like, you
right.
know how like
But
our
some
brains
are
are sort of made for like berry picking. But anyway,
yes, yes, and some of them are good looking, but I want to call them pretty. You know,
yeah, no, definitely,
yeah, but
sort of like the New Yorker or whatever.
yes, that I mean that is really like the dream of like the physical things is actually people just like weird to say the part of the dream of them is people getting rid of them and just like passing them on to other people.
Yeah,
Because that's
I
like
was very happy.
it's the weird way that like culture can like preserve or like a spread of like people downsizing and like you know I have one of my friends just like has too many books and he just left a box of books by the door and another friend just like grabbed like 6 of them, you know,
hmm
and that's
No,
you know
it's great.
and it's the way some of that spreads. uh,
I think I sort of like purchasing new books. I know that's a little controversial, but
right.
it's because I like to write in my books.
Oh right, and you can't have someone else
It's-
having already done that.
yeah, exactly. Um, and then like I'll give the book that I've written into someone else. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's like, you know,
right.
read my writing, you know. But,
Yeah, pass them
um,
around, and it is you know
yeah,
there is sometimes like the nice like the crispness you know of
yeah.
a fresh book,
I love a crisp, fresh book.
and then
Yeah.
but then you know sometimes you have to like have like weird library editions. I've got you know a series that has like different one of them's hardcover, a couple of other covers that are all like old library editions though.
hmm
But we're straying from the point. Not the
Yeah.
point.
Sorry.
No. I mean, this whole show is straying from the point. That's arguably the point of it is to inherently stray. But I want
hmm
at least get in beforehand of we mentioned it. If people are unfamiliar, how would you describe Around?
Oh gosh. I
Right.
feel like
There are some developers here who I just where that question is like, oh yeah, okay, then I throw them a giant like bomb in their face and go, oh god, how do I do that? Like
I would
concisely.
say, well, working on Around was a bit of a
Yeah.
fever dream.
Okay.
First off, because for the past 2 years, or has it been 3 years? 2 years. I've been working on this game called The Backcountry.
Yes.
Um, and it's coming along, and I'm really enjoying it, and I've loved working on it. But then I got your email, and I was like, oh, I guess I should make something. And it's not like I dislike making smaller games.
Right,
It's just
right.
like I haven't really done that since graduating from like undergraduate, you know?
Yeah.
Because I've been sort of like, what is it, like hyper focusing? I don't know. I want a funnier word for that, but I can't think of it.
Right. I mean,
Like,
you've been making a video
yeah.
game. You know?
Yeah, like something that I actually like I'm planning on selling on Steam. It
Yeah.
would be cool if it was like on the Switch, you know, like stuff like that. So but so I was sort of like deep in my hole of like figuring out the backcountry. And then like you emailed me. I was like, "Oh, cool." And it was really nice to like take a break from what I'd been focusing on because I like doing that. I really love game jams. I love working with my friends on
Yeah.
things that like are sort of inconsequential but still beautiful. Um but I was like, I need to make something where I can continue to do the backcountry in the morning, and then I can work on it in the afternoon, and I don't have to think too hard about it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the design of Around was based around, like, I think earlier you were talking about, or you and Nicholas were talking a little bit about like sort of like mechanical integrity,
Right.
and then I think the conversation switched to sort of like ripping assets from other things, you
Oh
know?
yes. Yes. No. I mean
I
that's
feel like
yeah.
I feel like often if I don't have time, I will do that. Not like illegally, right?
Well,
But like
I mean, let's just say there may be uh, uh, a plunder core game that exists that is a commission game for Indiepocalypse. This is
yeah, yeah.
yeah. There it
Um,
is a safe space for what we'll call borrowed assets.
Well, so
Yeah.
the Around, all of the little like fake characters in
Yeah.
Around are the fucking, or excuse me, sorry, are the Mixamo, um, like skin man.
Yes.
And all the animations are Mixamo animations. And I think it was interesting you were talking about sort of like genre before, because I
Yeah.
think the games I make mechanically do not fit into genres easily.
Right.
But the ways that I make them do come from other games or pre-made things, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say the genre that Around is a rhythm game,
Yes.
maybe.
Right.
But it's a really weird rhythm game, where you're just trying to sort of like, I think, match the beat of. I mean, maybe the mechanics aren't that interesting. Like it's just like clicking on beat. But I guess
Right.
like the
But it-
the sort of like collage together final product, I don't think easily fits into someone's brain in
Yes.
a genre way.
Right.
You
Right. No,
Um,
100%. Like if you just threw it at someone, they would eventually maybe figure out it's a rhythm game. But there's the interestingness of like presentation and how, like, yeah, I think how you just like that was probably one of the most like ideal descriptions of this kind of like emerging like era of like designers that you were a part of like informed by genre but making things that can't be easily defined by genre.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, and maybe this is like sort of hoity-toity to say,
Yes.
but I often find like the art in any medium, not just games, that I like the most is and usually, and not just stuff that I like the most, but the things that people like the most, that like they feel most connected to, is like not something where you're like, oh, this is a copy of this. It's like,
Right.
oh, this is inspired. Like I can tell like the themes from this. Like this takes from this song, and this takes from this book, and like
Yeah.
it's sort of like a continued conversation of the themes explored in other facets of reality.
Right.
But
Right.
it's not. And so like you're feeding inspiration into some person, and then the person takes some time to think, and then they metabolize it, and then they reproduce like a variation of it with like
Yeah.
their own thoughts and opinions communicated through it, I guess.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Right. It's their own. They're like, yeah, exactly. I think like conversation is, probably the way I most often, I think probably the best way to describe it is like, art in conversation with other, because then it's like, right. I suppose like to carry the analogy is like, is this art in conversation with other art, or is it simply repeating what it's heard before?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well,
Yeah, sorry.
no, I was just going to further expand. I was just going to say, am I hearing something new, or am I just hearing the story retold to me, but like maybe missing some details, not having the right emphasis, that sort of
I'm
thing.
thinking about sort of like the opposite of that,
Right.
and I think the opposite is like a parable.
Yeah.
Like, what's that guy? He's from Mesopotamia. He's like the riddle guy with like the baby man, old person thing.
Okay. You kept saying words, and I was like, I was like, I was with you, then I was lost, and then I was.
Oh, I'm
with
so
you.
sorry.
Yes.
He's a king. He like loves his mother. I don't know. It's like the ultimate parable thing.
Yeah.
But like, so I feel like, I don't know, like the opposite of that. I guess like I don't know. When I think of like contemporary parables, I think of like the Avengers movies,
Okay.
or just
Yeah.
like something where you know exactly what it is, and you know
Yes.
exactly like what each character is and what they represent. You know.
You're right. Here are the good
Um,
guys. Here are the bad guys. You're gonna learn a lesson by the end.
Yeah. So I feel like there is like a place for that, like in terms of like comfort, maybe
Yeah.
for players. Like if it's something that they've seen before, it's like something that they understand how to interact with.
Right. I
Um,
think Oedipus is a Greek guy.
Oedipus, thank you. No, he's Mesopotamian. Right?
Oh,
think?
wait. No, Oedipus is a Greek guy. I know that guy. He's Greek.
He's not. He's
Or maybe he is Mesopotamian, but the story's Greek. I'm not sure.
Anyway.
Who knows? But we know the guy who loves his mother. The classic
Yeah, the
guy
guy who loves his mother. Oh no, you're completely right. He's Greek. What the fuck? Why did I learn about that in the Mesopotamian unit of my 9th grade humanities class? Whatever, it doesn't
right.
matter.
Well, who knows? Listen, in 9th grade, things are all like kind of mixed together, and
Yeah,
they're like, we gotta teach.
everything's new and confusing. Yeah.
Right, we gotta just teach these kids a bunch of mythology that they'll go, I hate this. Why do we have to learn this? Doesn't teach me anything. And then as an adult, you're like, I'm older and wiser, and I understand Oedipus now. Classic mama's boy.
Maybe I'm not thinking about this. I think I mixed two of them together.
Possibly. I think a lot of these things, like these stories, kind of, especially myths, they blend together, or they get reinterpreted and retold in different ways.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes like it's weird to think that in some ways, like that part of like Dante's Inferno is like his fan fiction of him hanging out with an author he likes.
Yes. I am actually, after I finish the Backcountry, I am making a visual novel that's sort of similar.
Listen, we all deserve to be like our classic writers. Like it's considered a classic text and it's self-insert OC.
Yeah. Well, it's honestly probably like the trashy is the wrong word, but
Right.
like the most like like fulfilling or inserting thing
Yes.
I will ever probably like put on Steam.
Right.
Like,
Right.
not the most like self-inserting thing I've ever made.
Of
I remember
course.
like in high school, I like wrote this like fiction about like 3D printing my favorite anime character. Like,
Now, important question: do you remember who at the time it was?
yeah, it was still my favorite anime character is Mitsuru Kirijo from Persona 3.
Okay.
But yeah, it was about like this crazy scientist, in parentheses me,
Yes.
like figuring out how to sort of like 3D print like organs and stuff and sort of like synthesize like a personality from like a collective like fan fiction description like culling of internet knowledge. And I remember I brought it to my creative writing class and they were like, "What is this?" And I was like I don't know, this is the only thing I could get myself to write. Like
Right. I mean, Archive of Their Own will show that fan fiction is a lot of stuff a lot of people want to write.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. It's kind of. I mean, it's also like. I think of those kinds of fan works is like, almost like this world of like pure artistic expression because like, commercialization can't touch them,
Mhm.
because you can't sell your stories about them.
Oh yeah.
So it is like very purely about like.
For yourself.
Right, yourself or for other people, and it is. Oh, sorry, I saw boy mom discourse, and I can't. Who is the classic historical boy mom? We'll get into that later.
Boy mom.
Is Hera?
No,
Is Hera a
there's a
classic boy
different
mom?
thing I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But,
Is that? I'm trying to think. I mean, is Gilgamesh from that area?
Gilgamesh is what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Mesopotamian king with the sort of parable about like being a baby and then a man and then like an old man, and it's like what's on 4 legs and then 2 legs.
Yes.
and 3
Okay.
legs.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mixed up
Yes.
Gilgamesh and Oedipus. That's sort of fucked up.
That makes
But-
sense. Gilgamesh is more from that region.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't love his mother in quite the
Listening.
same way.
I yeah, okay. I took like too many classics related things in high school and they sort
Right.
of all mixed together.
Right.
But,
Right. But
That's sort of the point. Yeah, I don't know.
right. It's the beauty of realizing that they mix together in weird ways, and you go, oh yeah, people have just been copying each other for history. We just
Gilgamesh. Sorry.
see. I
Yeah.
read that differently. I was thinking that was like, I in my mentally just the way I pronounced it, I had an extra S, so it was like there's a cat thing going on, and I didn't have time to process it.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Gilgapus, but that's also, like,
Gilgapus.
mixed up. Yeah.
I don't know what Gilgapus is, but Gilgapus.
That would be like how my Latin teacher would make us say that.
Could you could you imagine if he's like, no, it's pronounced Gilgamesh, and we're like, what? We've been
That would be so funny.
you've been saying it wrong the whole time.
You're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable, to quote like the Muppets or something.
Yes. What if that
Or-
actually was how we're supposed to? Could you imagine if the original English creators of those words be like, no, that's actually how you correctly pronounce emphasis and syllable. That's how we intended it.
I have this uncle. My dad's family is from like Kentucky, and his brother-in-law like would always say instead of advertisement, they would say he would say advertisement.
Okay. Yeah.
I
That
sort
is.
of like it a bit.
Yeah.
but-
I mean, if I'm throwing a little sauce on words, that is one of the words I'll throw a sauce on and say advertisement. But it's weird because that sounds like very like in my mind. I think of that as like English or something, or like a non-American way of saying advertisement.
Well, I'm pretty sure Southern accents are more similar to like English accents than
That-
Northern.
I mean, that would make
USA
sense
accents. Yeah.
since they landed there and all.
Yeah. Anyway, but
Right. The minutia of language. I mean, that's going back to the show's roots, where I got obsessed about food for a while, and I was talking about regional dishes. It's how I learned about fairy bread and democracy dogs.
ooh, what's that?
They're like an Australian polling place things. They're big sausages and white bread that they
Ooh.
like give out at polling places during elections.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
And they're like, fairy bread is also very similar and is also white bread but like covered in sprinkles. And I think like
Okay.
butter or something to adhere it.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Just like cheap stuff you can make with white bread. But we're getting close, but we're not quite there. So before we start to get to our full wrap up, you mentioned it a couple of times. It is currently on TBA in terms of release, but tell me a little bit about the backcountry.
Oh, backcountry is weird. Okay,
Yes. As
Oh,
simply
weird.
as one can.
yeah. Okay, so the backcountry is a simulation puzzle game. Probably the things that are most similar to it, if you like are trying to quickly like draw an image in your
Yeah.
mind, are probably like Zoo Tycoon
Okay.
and Virtual Villagers. So the backcountry
Yeah.
is a game. I've figured this out by making it. It's taken me a long
Yes.
time to figure this out. It's about religious osmosis.
Okay.
So you're a weird, like, old crone in the woods based off of Joyce Carol Oates, watching these animals in the forest, interact with each other. They can, like, have children. There's, like, genetics. There's, like, social tensions. They all have relationships with each other. It's sort of like, that's why it's a simulation
Yes.
game. It's not necessarily simulating something real, but it's like,
Right. It's a
Like
simulated. There's a simulated system that exists.
yeah, it's like the Warriors Cats, I would say, is really similar
Okay.
in terms of like the energy that is being
Yes.
simulated.
Yes, I see this dog here has brain empty.
Yeah. So the three tribes of animals are wolves, pigs, and crocodiles. And ideally in the future it'll be like you can like upload your own models and have your own kind of tribe, but that's a stretch goal.
Yes,
But
of course.
I'm just like working on the campaign currently. And the whole core of the game is like making the creatures do actions that they like to unlock puzzles over time,
Yeah.
which is pretty much like the virtual villagers part. And yeah, you're trying to, they all have their own religions and you have your own religion as well, and you're trying to like have the animals realize that like you don't suck by sharing
Yes.
your religion with them.
Okay.
Like, so, and that like your perspective like will bring new ideas to them that they didn't know about previously. But you're sort of like this like hermit in the woods that's also like afraid of interacting with other living beings.
Okay.
So, and you also have four hands
Okay.
that you can see on the screen at all times.
Yes,
or at least when you're not focused on an animal.
Yes,
But
the thing is, it's weird. Like I saw that. I was peeking around the screenshots, and I did not until you mentioned it recognize. Oh yes, there are four hands there. Like
I don't know. I was just like, I need more hands for all the
Yes.
devices, and it's
Yeah.
like, why not have more?
Okay, thank you. No, I say this with like the largest. No, I say this with the largest compliment. I was looking at these screenshots. I'm like, this is inscrutable, and and I was like, I need you, which is like, as someone like when I get when a game comes across my submissions process, I'm like, this is truly inscrutable. I get very excited because
That's awesome.
I am looking for like something that does work, like you said, works in systems that are like vaguely familiar, but is like presenting them or like reconfiguring them in a way that you probably have not seen before, or like that
Yeah.
is very distinctly coming from your brain and the brains of the people you're working with, and not like an amalgamation of like what different genres. It's not like a game mechanic assembly,
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I don't know. I think the mechanics come over time for me.
Yeah.
For me, it's usually I have like a vibe in my head, and then I'm
Right.
like, okay, how do we achieve this vibe through user interaction?
Yes.
you know?
Okay. So
So that's why the mechanics are so or that's why like everything's so strange,
no, that is
but also familiar.
Abby,
I
you're
don't know.
speaking exactly to 100%. That is my design process in the rare cases where I make things of like, how do I make something? Well, how can I make a game that conveys this idea?
Exactly. Yeah.
Not like I want to convey an idea, and so I'm gonna do a puzzle platformer, and then in between, there are cutscenes where I learn about a pig's religion. Like that feels like cheating. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to really get in there. But I'm
Sometimes
gonna.
cutscenes are fun though. I mean,
Yes.
like Yakuza and
Oh.
Hideo Kojima's stuff. But
You're talking to someone who right before this show put down like a pirate. You know.
Yeah.
I am fully in on that as well. Life takes all experiences, but here in Indiepocalypse, when I am Indiepocalypse guy, when I am Andrew Indiepocalypse, I emphasize the weird stuff. You know, make it louder.
Definitely.
So I've got a couple questions for you. Now you've had time to prepare. What's your favorite type of rock?
Oh, I forgot about this question. I was focused on the question.
The time to prepare has been squandered.
I like the alum stone.
Okay.
Is that a rock?
I don't.
That's like
it's got the word stone in it as it was conveyed to you from you to me.
I've been trying to like find like interesting like scent control and augmentation things. Like I really like perfume and stuff, and alum stone is related to that. It's like an ancient form of like perfume that like you rub on your body. Anyway, or no, not perfume, like deodorant, I guess. I don't know. That's like the only rock I can think of right now. So I apologize. I also like my laptop. That's like technically a rock full of a bunch of different minerals, you know.
Right. I mean, all this stuff is just stuff we dug from the ground. It's all rocks and oil and plastic.
Sand. Yeah.
And second question, do you have a favorite Toho character?
Okay, the only thing I know about Toho is the Bad Apple video that I saw when I was probably in 9th grade.
Yes.
Because, you know. And I looked through it briefly after you told Nicholas that it would, like, he would be punished. And I was like, oh god, I can't be punished.
Right, well, this is your first time on. You've still got one more opportunity before you face potential punishment.
Yeah. So I don't remember who I was talking about this with. Maybe like my like childhood best friend Veronica recently. But yeah, I was like, yeah, you haven't seen Bad Apple, which was really shocking because we were really into anime together.
Right.
But and she was like, oh, this is where like the girl with the wing bells comes from. I remember seeing fan art of her from this girl in like my Polish class when I was in elementary school. So I think the wing bell girl is my favorite.
Yes, Flandre Scarlet, of course.
Flandre Scarlet?
I believe. I will embarrass myself if I got that wrong, but I'm.
Oh, Flandre.
Flandre, yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she got like crystals on her wings. Like,
I think I like her silhouette more than I like her non-silhouette. But
it's a very cool silhouette.
Yeah.
But Abby, thank you for joining me here today.
Really.
I'm looking for I'm trying to have to track down my windows. I found them. Did you see the same history? Wait, this is the guy who's in here. We'll be back in about 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Goodbye for now. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. We are here. No, we're not. We're here with people, but that was obviously swearing with Kenosha. We are here with the final guest of the show. I have to remove our third guest. Nicholas has exited the chat, but of course, as mentioned previously, if I think I don't know when it's coming out. Let me look when it's coming out. I will say on his behalf, hey, go wishlist Bundle of Joy on your Steam platform of choice. Bundle of Joy is also a movie. I gotta type game in there. March 25th. It's coming out in like 2 weeks, more or less. So there you go. Get on top of that. But we are here with our next guest and final guest. Hello. Megan, sneak it in there on me. Hello.
I know. I'm sorry. I was too excited.
I know. No, glad to have you here. Welcome from, it's classic. It's classic behavior from someone who is no longer the youngest child.
Oh, yeah.
Now that Indiepocalypse 62 has come out from Indiepocalypse 61 with Kanade. How do you say that?
Well, I say Canada,
yeah.
But it's a Latin word, so I think you just make up however you want to say it.
Okay, yes.
It doesn't matter.
It's Megan, also known as Ozone Interactive. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yes, and we'll say Chimera, we did start talking about. Or at least I started talking a lot about Clown Peace during the break. I have not done a tabulation of how many Clown Peace fans there were, or number one Clown Peace enjoyers there were.
Gonna need to start putting a tally up on screen.
Yes, of like, it has been X days since we have mentioned Clown Peace on Indiepocalypse Radio. But speaking of Indiepocalypse, I gotta know, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Well, I was thinking about this during everyone else's segment,
Yes.
and honestly, I think it was just whenever I made my itch account, I would always see it featured on the front page, but I don't think I really thought about it that much until quite recently when I was paying a lot more attention to itch because I was actually uploading things.
Yes.
But I hadn't thought about submitting anything to it until, again, Kim submitted her game to it, and I was like, well, you know what? I'll throw Canada at it and see what happens. So,
Yeah, right. And what happened is I was like, oh, this game's really cool. I should include this game.
Thank you. Yeah.
That is like talking about things that make you like withered to dust. Or like, oh yeah, when I heard about Indiepocalypse because I made my itch account. It was a thing that existed. I'm like, it's only 5 years old. It's not that old. But it is like the realization of like, and also why I'm never worried about people ever running out of people, because like when would you say you started making and uploading games? Like,
actually uploading them?
Yes.
Maybe. Well, okay. I had some old ones on my account that I've since delisted. Let me see when I uploaded those. Let me check. Probably 2022.
Okay. But were you like making games at all beforehand? Just like
yeah, a little bit here and there. I didn't actually finish anything until I agreed to do one for a project, and then I had to finish it for a deadline.
Right, but also that's like the joy of making art by yourself. You know, you're like, oh, I just don't have to finish this. You know.
Yeah, just sit in my hard drive forever.
Yeah, right. In the same way of like, oh, I can just have a sketch in my sketchbook. It doesn't have to like go on Instagram.
Yeah.
So there's the terrifying reality that, you know, at least easily predates your uploading of games, but, you know, the realization of like, oh, this predates people making games, you know, like, oh, I didn't get into making games until 2021. And I'm like, oh, I started this in 2020. Huh.
Yeah.
But that's also the exciting thing, because, you know, you're coming with perspectives of like, I am tired of old people, done with them, throw them in the
yes.
Sorry to our now that Nicholas is gone, I can say throw the old people in the trash. We don't need them anymore. But if people are unfamiliar with Canada, how would you describe it?
Well, Canada, it's a short visual novel, and it's basically just a 30-minute little horror vignette about going out on Halloween with your terrible friends and hanging out on terrible British estate.
Which is like
there's not a great deal to it.
No, but I think that's also like hanging out with your terrible friends feels like a cornerstone of art. Stories about hanging out with your terrible friends.
Yes.
So it is right. Classic experience growing up. It's a thing that games lack. Games lack, like, oh, stories about my really shitty friends. For you as an outsider to go, why do they hang out with their shitty friends? That's stupid. And then they put down the game and then go proceed to hang out with their shitty friends.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, especially like, it is, you know, if you're in like even like in a more like rural or like suburban environment, like that is even like more pronounced, because like the options you have for people around your age are sometimes like here's 3 people, you know.
Yeah, you know maybe 3 people, and you kind of like one of them, and then you get stuck with all their friends,
right?
And then those are your friends now,
right? And everyone's like, okay, I guess these are like this is our friend group now. And they're all shitty wolves.
that's one of those teenage things where like there are people you know who you can tell they don't even really like their friends,
Right.
but like they've known them too long that they just will never go and speak to anyone else. So
Right.
they're just trapped like that.
Right. It's trapped by the politeness of not ending friendships or whatever it is. Of just like not breaking routine. When really, like, friends are some of the easiest people to simply not talk to again. You don't live together usually.
Yeah, you just don't have to do it. But yeah.
But like that compulsion of routine just kind of like bakes in there.
Yeah, no.
Now, a bit of a question on my behalf of these the sprite work. Now, these
Yes.
where do these little guys come? Because I'm
Oh yeah. So the art style, the way the art style kind of evolved is that I just can't illustrate for the life of me.
right.
But a big part of these games is, the sprite work.
Yes.
So I was trying to think of ways I could make it look, half decent without having to draw a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And because I was making it for Spooktober, I only had 30 days, and I wanted to do a solo jam project, so I had to figure out a way to do it myself. And in the summer, I had worked in a team with other people in the GMTK game jam.
Yeah.
And for that, I had made a cover image for the game where I kind of dithered the image and made it black and white.
Okay.
And when I was thinking about how to do the art style, I was thinking about that again, and I realized I really liked how that image came out.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I know how I can do the backgrounds, because I can just take photos and do that exact thing to them, like pixelate them. And then for the sprites, I guess I'll just photo bash things together.
Yeah.
And
okay.
put such a thick effect on it that I hope it turns out looking okay. And
No,
yeah.
no, it does. That's why I was asking. Like, so are these like photos you took of people and then just kind of like smushed photos of animal heads on top of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of them are my photos. Some of them are stock images.
Yeah.
And you just throw them together. The one for Fred's sprite, his neutral pose of holding a baseball bat. The stock image for that is actually really funny. Because it's just a stock image of like a 40-year-old man in like a baseball uniform. So whenever I find the original image, it's very funny to me. But yeah, a lot of it for the animal masks, a lot of them are really horrible images of like people's stuffed animal heads in their house, like taxidermied animals.
Yes, yeah, because they do have a certain degree of like menace to them, just like almost inherent, which I think comes with the territory of stuffed. Like it has that frozen. I guess it works perfectly in your case of having a frozen visage of like a posed animal.
Yeah, I do think it really worked out.
Yeah, no, I heartily agree. But yeah, so this was your first. I mean, besides like these aforementioned delisted things, your first solo project.
I've completed. There's the other game on my profile, Wave Step.
Okay.
Which is something I did for university. That was a solo thing, but in terms of games made for myself by myself, it is my first one.
Yeah, and I mean that's always the interesting thing. As I've talked to people before, like the university experience of like changes so like radically depending on like where you're going to college, of like what the course is like and what they want from you, and like are you like would you say it was a more like traditional sort of like, hey, you're gonna make game designs for the game industry kind of thing, or would you say it's like versus like a more like art school experience?
Yeah, for my course, this was a first year project, so they didn't want to give us a great deal of freedom because they were worried we would, go down some kind of rabbit hole and not be able to escape from it.
Yeah.
So mostly it was about just making sure we knew how to use Unity,
Important thing
as
to
a
know how to use.
hireable skill.
Yeah.
Learn Unity.
Yes.
But yeah, they moved into more arts focus as the course went on. But they just wanted us to have some kind of baseline of how to use a game engine.
Yeah, I mean, and when we say that's probably the one you're most familiar with, or do you just kind of, or
Yeah, I in terms of full scale like game engines like
Yeah.
Unity or Unreal or Godot, Unity's definitely the one I know best.
okay,
But I like messing around with all open
Yeah.
source tools and things. So
yeah, there's the handiness of like, if you wanted to make a visual novel for like Spooktober, you just like why just use RenPy? It's right there,
yeah, I to do that, I hadn't used RenPy at all before I started Spooktober. I was just kind of hoping I'd be able to figure it out
Right.
within the month. Which luckily it's a very easy engine to use, so
Yeah.
I was fine.
Yeah, unless you're getting real like unhinged and doing a lot of like weird stuff, you generally if you're just presenting text on a linear path with maybe a branch or two, like
Yeah.
it'll generally do that out of the box, especially if you have like some programming background, because like Python is not the same like, but programming languages are they remind me sort of like the Romance languages,
Yeah.
of like you kind of understand them all if you sort of get one. They kind of
Yeah.
work similar to each other.
It's close enough to other things
Yeah.
that you'll eventually get there.
Right. It's the weirdness of like, I came from C++. I forgot that Python uses gendered phrasing and everything.
Yeah.
Is this a font or a fonta?
Yeah. Always putting semicolons everywhere.
Yes. Right. Whether or not they like semicolons, semicolons or not. But there is like right. But there's so much to it, and this kind of the work you can do. But you've also, I'm looking here, of course. You've also done like tabletop work.
Yes.
And like, so what's the experience in doing like what made you like, oh, I'm gonna try a hand at like a tabletop game?
I really like the kind of solo TTRPG
Yes.
community on itch generally. There are so many little jams for it, like the one-page jam
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And there are so many creators that just put out tons of little solo games for free or for like so cheap, and they just give out hundreds of community copies. And I think it's
Right.
just a really nice space, and people always make like hacks of other games, and that's totally fine. And I just really like the atmosphere of it. And I had played a game that I had really loved, called Alone in the Stars.
Alone Among
And
the
then I
Stars.
went back to the
I have it.
yes,
Yeah, I
and
got
then
you
I went
covered.
back to the original,
Yeah.
and then I was like, you know what, I had recently read some books I'd really enjoyed.
Yes.
Like a Roadside Picnic
Yeah,
and
no,
things. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make a hack of this, based on what I'm currently obsessed with, and
Yes. Oh.
learn how to do that.
We are approaching a trifecta of. I was about to say, I am obsessed with Stalker. Like,
Yes.
I think about.
Yes. Stalker's great.
I think about it probably once a week. It's just like.
Have you read Area X by
I have
oh
not.
god, who's it by? Oh, if you love Stalker, you would love that. It's one of the other big inspirations
Okay.
for that project.
It's by Annihilation guy Jeff Vandermeer.
Yeah.
Yes. No. I've seen that movie, and it exists
Yes.
within the world, the subgenre I think of as what if Stalker, but you shot things.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen the film. I know it's quite different, but I don't know in what ways.
I think that was during the heady Movie Pass days when I was seeing like a lot of movies basically for free.
Yeah, I had a yearly film pass once, and I miss it very badly.
Yeah, no, it was. I don't know if Movie Pass made it over your way, but like that was a day, because, or that was an era because it was like $8 a month for as many movies as you wanted to see, and it was not a sustainable model at all.
Yeah. I'm not sure the equivalent of it in England is either, because I'd gotten a year subscription to it as a Christmas gift to my local cinema. But every time I look at it, it's gone up in price by like £2.
Right.
So I think they're slowly driving it up until they reach a point where it makes sense, and then nobody wants it anymore.
You're right. It's the unfortunate thing of it's like it's not sustainable to just like give people free movies that they can watch all the time, because then unless they're buying popcorn, but they're just not buying enough popcorn. Now here's an important question I have: is popcorn a universal thing? Is that like?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That was. It's one of those things where I took for granted. I'm like, but I would not be surprised if that was like a unique American like theater going experience.
A lot of things are generally the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are just different names for them.
Right. Oh yeah, that is, I have yearned for, as someone who likes kind of cheap food. I have in theory I've theorized endlessly about what I would do with a Tesco meal deal. Even though it's like an experience I would probably have once, and then I'd be like, I've had it. Congratulations.
Yeah, you'd be like, that sandwich was okay. I don't need to do this again.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like not a thing that I have, and I think even other parts of the U.S. have similar like convenience store kind of things.
Yeah.
But
in England, actually, it's funny. A lot of American import food is really expensive here because of the novelty of it.
Yeah.
There's my like local corner shop. They sell American import drinks that we don't have here, like a billion different flavors of Dr. Pepper and Coke and things.
Yes. Yeah.
And if I go to get one, it's like double the price of what just the normal flavor of it would be.
Right.
It's like a unique American version.
No, I remember looking up American sections at stores, and like, because I was like, what do people consider to be like American foods? And it was weird to see like a lot of it was like Pringles and like our like maple syrup.
Yeah, American Oreos are a big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No idea why.
I could not tell you, but that's our cross-culture exchange is Oreos. We've got a lot of, you've got our plain ones. Have you got our Post Malone Oreos over there?
No, we do not, unfortunately.
Oh, the curse of Brexit strikes again.
Yeah.
Post.
God. The worst consequence of Brexit is I don't get to eat those Post Malone Oreos.
Did you know he's like a country musician? I didn't know that.
I don't know anything about him, to be honest. I've seen pictures of him.
Me too.
That's it.
And then I got like a YouTube ad. I'm like, he does like country music? I have no idea. I didn't know what he did, but it like when I heard his music for the first time, I didn't know it would be that. But you're also working on kind of like an ongoing project, or a couple ongoing projects, but one that is like available that one can look at right now, being Midnight Transmission.
Yes, that is I need to get back to working on that because I've been very busy recently.
Yeah, that is as someone who commissions games, a lot of people like I give people 4 months, which means that sometimes they have like 20 hours within those 4 months to be able to work because life gets busy.
Yeah, but Midnight Transmission is really cool. It's a community-ran Yume Nikki fan game.
Yes.
That basically just they invite people on to do music or make levels or do sprite work, and you just make what you want, and the core devs fit it somewhere into the experience. It's really nice to work on.
Okay. Yes. Okay. That is why, because I feel like I've also seen it popped from like other pages too.
Yeah, it has like 30 plus contributors, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Of just various things.
It's such like I feel like it is an understated like if you are just a person who logs onto the internet and pays attention to like whatever like game press or what the kind of conversation that would dominate a social media website, you would never understand how influential of a game Yume Nikki is.
Yes, yeah. Whenever I tell friends about it, I'm always like, "Do you know Yume Nikki?" And they're like, "No, I have no idea." And I'm like, "Well, like 10 of the indie games you've played in the last 5 years are
Right.
hugely inspired by it."
Right. It's like only one of the most influential games ever made on game design, and they're true like designers, like a game designer's game, you know. But also like very singular in like what it is, and like anyway, we don't have time to talk about Yume Nikki forever, presumably.
Yeah.
But that is so in that process you would be like you would make like so in this case you like made like a level or like a
Yes,
screen.
I'm working on a couple different levels currently.
Okay.
But yeah, basically you just make some background graphics, like tile sheets or whatever you want in there, some NPCs maybe, and then you make it all work with the current like effects in the game.
Yeah.
And then that's your little level, and they put it in there. But yeah, it's really nice to work on.
Yeah.
And even if you just do like music or something, if you just, I think they have a link to the Discord on the itch page.
They do,
You can
yeah.
just go to that, join the Discord, and then if you want to work on something, you can.
That is like super cool. Like the idea of like this, you know, like the kind of, it's not 100. I mean, you can play it right now, so it's not 100% like Exquisite Corpse design, but it is like also very similar in that design space, that like that design practice space of Exquisite Corpse.
Yeah.
And also that kind of thing lends itself well to a Yume Nikki fan game.
Yeah, people can get a lot weirder with it because it doesn't really matter if it's got some stylistic like inconsistencies, because that kind of just adds to the whole thing.
Right, to the dream like kind of like incongruence of like of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of people's favorite things, Megan, I've got a couple questions about your favorite things.
Oh yeah.
First up, what's your favorite type of rock?
You know when you go to a gift shop and they have those like little bags of like fake gemstones you'd get as a kid?
Yes.
Those are the best types of rocks.
Okay. Yes. Those nebulous. I guess you just call them gift shops. I think about them as the place where you would the only place in the world where those pewter wizards exist. If people know what I'm talking about, they've got little orbs usually that are like fake crystals.
Yeah.
And like as an adult, I'm realizing like what were those shops like? What was the purpose of them? Other than
who knows?
Bags of rocks.
Yeah.
So,
What kid doesn't love a bag of rocks?
It is like, and it is like saying it again, like activated that very specific sense memory to like, I 100% know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And probably seeing those in places like Vermont or like other greater parts of New England. So maybe it's one of our imports from our parents back home.
Yeah.
And now, do you have a favorite Toho character?
I unfortunately haven't fell down the Toho rabbit hole yet. It's on the periphery of like so many of my interests, but I just haven't committed. But after all that Clown Piece discussion, I feel obligated to say that Clown Piece is my favorite Toho character.
Yeah, you can have a favorite Toho character without having ever played a single Toho game.
Yeah. It's the only Toho character I know of, so I guess she wins automatically.
Wins by default. That's what we call the power of propaganda.
Yeah, you've influenced me already. So
yes, yeah. You know as they say, person who's never seen a Toho character other than the Clown Piece. This giving me serious Clown Piece vibes, as they say.
Yeah, exactly.
But Megan, thank you. We're going to go on break. You'll be back very soon because you're going to our group segment.
All right.
But thank you for joining me here today.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
Glad to have you on. I mean, this is the going on break. We'll be back. I was going to keep talking about this. This break's going to be about 54 seconds long, so we'll be back very quickly. See you all at the other half of that 54 seconds. Hello and welcome back. Like I said, from the very short break of Indiepocalypse Radio, that was, of course, Taco Cat's Skate Witch. Skate with an 8, of course, the proper spelling of it. We're back with the whole crew, or the whole crew that remained, which is Sky, Abby, and Megan. How are y'all doing back here?
Woo!
Feeling
I'm
well rested.
well-rested.
I know.
Yeah.
okay.
Oh my God, Sky.
We're all mind melded perfectly.
Yeah.
I was
This
attempting.
54 seconds buzz.
We were playing a game last night, and I was attempting to do that, to perform a mind meld, and I was highly unsuccessful with a friend. But you did it
Have
there.
you
without
played The
even...
Mind?
I was about to bring that game up. Yeah,
What was
What's
that?
happening?
the
Mind.
card game, The Mind.
Yeah,
I don't know. What is that? I am.
the mind meld game.
Is it
It's like a 4-player card game. You have cards that go to 100, and you have to try and place them down in order without speaking to
Okay.
anyone else.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I understand what it is now. It's a fun thing, especially when the friend does not know what you're doing, and he's like, "Huh?" You're like, "We're trying to say the same thing." He's like, "Oh, I was just saying random words."
I feel like there's a lot of like theater and like folk games based around that kind of thing, like
Yeah.
the game where it's like each person says a word and they have to like get closer to saying the same word each like turn. Or
Right.
whatever.
That is what I've always thought of mind meld to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like. I wrote like 20 of those at one point in like pre-Indiepocalypse days, like parlor games. Just like zero setup or zero like resource kind of things. Back when, of course, they did not have computers. All they had was newspapers and yelling at each other.
All they had were iPhones.
No, we just had to hit each other with. Are you familiar with what's the name of the game? Are You There, Moriarty? I believe is what's called the name of it.
I am not.
I don't think
no
I know
clue.
that one.
It is, if I remember the exact rules of it, you're blindfolded. You each get like a rolled up newspaper, and I think you are like tied together or something. And then you say it's like kind of like a Marco Polo style thing, saying "Are you there, Moriarty?" and the person responds, and then you attempt to hit that person with your rolled up newspaper.
Oh,
I have never seen this before.
that sounds fun.
It
There
does
is-
sound fun.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a good like, kind of like page or book or some kind of encapsulation of just like parlor games, because that's also like a whole like sub. I mean, charades is a classic, well-known example of those.
I mean, I think like the expert on that in the contemporary game scene that I know of is Emily Kuntz.
Right.
Yeah. But,
A friend that reminding me of people I need to get on the show. Friend of the made a game for that what's it called, the Iron Circus collab with Paloma Dawkins. They had worked together on making a game that is all these people always exist in my brain. They're like, I need to remember to have these people on. But yeah, there you see a little bit in the game space of like night games at Indiecade. Kind of sometimes has some of these, but it is like so much like stuff of kind of loose ideas and like cooperative play and all these sorts of things. That is, that games can do very uniquely.
I wonder what design discussions were going on in like the 18th century about like parlor games and stuff.
Exactly right. Are there too many
the
rules?
interesting part is, like, well, they're not even design discussions, or
Right.
at least like not like mentally active design discussions.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this isn't fun. We should change this.
Right. They're not like codified, and they're passed through like orally in some cases.
Mhm.
of like this is how like that's like schoolyard games,
Mm-hmm.
of just like games kids invented, that are sometimes whole cloth inventions, or sometimes like abstracted versions of things that exist. But kids aren't usually like, here's our design doc for our game. We got to get ready before we go to the playground.
Yeah. Here's
I feel
our
like
pitch document.
Right.
The internet equivalent, I feel like, of that is like kids making stuff on Roblox, which is sort of
Right.
disturbing. But
You're right. It's the curse of like corporate monetization has crept in on children making games.
I mean, when I was like a teenager, I think like the avenue was more Minecraft instead
Yes.
of Roblox. But I think Roblox is more accessible.
Yes, of course. Minecraft when we were all kids.
There's also unfortunately the like Fortnite level maker
Right.
now. So
Yeah, right. That is Fortnite. That's the one I always thought of when I was a kid. Of course, I was not playing. I was not thinking of StarCraft. That wasn't my go-to. No, but no. I mean, each generation has one. Before that it was like Doom wads or whatever. Or stuff predated even me. Of like, oh, here's a little closed ecosystem that we can make rules within, much in the same way that like, oh, we have a ball that bounces. What can we do with this ball that bounces? And
me and my cousins used to play Pokemon TCG, so we would try and make our own card games. We'd have a huge sheet of paper and just cut out a bunch of completely unrelated cards and try and make a rule set out of them.
right, because I mean, it's part of the joy of like tabletop design is that there's no computers to say you're doing it wrong.
You can get an error message
Exactly.
from a tabletop game.
So like I was playing a tabletop game. I mean, I play about like once a week with friends, but he had done like a little module using public domain characters, and I was playing as Santa Claus, and I just started writing down new rules on my sheet as I was going along. And like, there's no computer to tell me no, that I should be able to determine by looking at any character whether they're naughty or nice. And
I have oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have 2 college friends that I play video games with every Wednesday.
Yeah.
So for a long time, the game that we were playing was American Truck Simulator.
Okay.
And we're all game designers, but like I don't know, you said like there's no computer to tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
So with every game that we've played for like longer than like 3 weeks in a row, we've decided to make a drinking game out of it.
Okay.
So like, and like they're sort of like very like, eventually we wrote down the rules, but I feel like drinking games are also like maybe the adult version
Yes.
of like childhood, like accessible sort of like tabletop thing that you were talking about.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
currently we're trying to make a drinking game out of the game Supermarket Together, which is significantly more difficult because it's a co-op game.
Right.
But like as we learn more about the game, we're like, oh, here's like things that you can mess up that you can like punish with like making someone drink. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, that is also like kind of, it's very similar to like, making your own paper for Pokemon TCG is like, well, I'm going, making systems within, and maybe this is a very telling thing as a youth, like a very game designer thing to do is like, what if I made my own systems within these existing systems, like that compulsion eventually leads you like, what if I just made my own games? I'm like and part of it came out of like, we had done similar things, which is part of like, you only have so many games, and you're like, well, we've played Halo 2 a lot, so what if we turned it into a racing game?
Yeah.
So we ended up like, designing courses, like makeshift like little courses, and I'd be like, oh, it's a racing game now actually, and you can't actually shoot people in that room for kind of like design within design.
Yeah, I used to make little prison escape games on Minecraft when I was younger to play with my cousins, and it it was basically you'd make a big building with like a couple prison cells, and then be like, this is our game now. We're just gonna walk around this for 2 hours.
Yeah, and it's like this kind of like digitally assisted LARP, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
I'm
like,
trying to remember, like, I'm trying to remember like games that I made with my friends when I was
Right.
little, and the only thing I can remember is like, well, I remember a few things, but the thing I remember the most is like I decided to turn, and when you talked about Pokemon, Megan, I decided to turn the Pokemon TV show into a game where I was the main character. My friends had to play as the Pokemon. And then another friend had to be all the enemies. They didn't like
God.
the game. But
You've reminded me of one of my ridiculous childhood stories. When I was a kid, me and my friends used to pretend to be Pokemon and have Pokemon battles. And
yeah.
the one I remember vividly though is once I was doing that with my friend, and he was Drifloon. This is the only part I remember. And he like pushed me over, which was pretty normal for the game. But I landed so wrong, I managed to break my arm in a fight with Drifloon.
Is that,
Oh god, I just remembered another one. Oh,
No, I was gonna relay another injury based on a game, though less practical. In elementary school, we used to throw a $50 around, and I don't know why. Don't ask me why we did this. As like a game,
$50?
like a coin, like a $50 coin,
Okay.
as a keep away game, and then it wound up in my head, and someone was like, "Oh, you're bleeding a lot." And I'm like, "Oh, I am." And I think I have a scar now. But yes, that just reminded me of childhood. I'm an invincible child. Let's play games where we push each other around and knock each other on the ground.
Yeah.
And then, oops, wait, this body can hurt? That's not supposed to do that.
Wow. I remembered a more peaceful childhood game that I made. Was my friend and I played this like game in quotes called Pokemon Farm.
Okay.
Where we would like draw like a little farm like on a really big piece of paper, and then we'd split like the farm, like the picture, like down two. And the game was you had to name a Pokemon, and both people had to draw them from memory.
Okay.
And like the funniest but most accurate looking Pokemon, I don't know if it like won, but it was very like, maybe it's not really a game, maybe it's an exercise.
Right, but it's like a childhood activity where you're not like codifying it to like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a thing that you know you're doing because you have to do something to pass time.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, see now, but now as a wise adult, you're like, you and your friends playing, go, oh, this is fun. How can we break this onto online? Let me make a website for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get PokemonFarm.com.
Oh god.
And I'll monetize it, and I'll put ads, and then you'll crush the soul out of it, whatever pleasure existed into it. But don't worry, because you'll go viral or something.
Yeah, you can get all the children that play it really into gambling.
Yes. That's the thing. We weren't doing enough as kids. You got to do more as kids. You got to gamble more.
We have to make more gambling games targeted
So I love
towards
MMOs.
children.
It was like, I guess there's most certainly a website that exists that is called PokeFarm.
PokeFarm.
They're $50. You know, I am having a mild unofficial fourth guest in the chat, Chimera.
Look, there really is a PokeFarm website. I'm on it right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I can
Select
imagine
X,
it's like
raise Pokemon.
it feels like it is in my mind is actually just actual Pokemon sprite rips or like RPG Maker sprites that are like lightly modified, you know?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Doesn't
wait,
sound-
no, this is like
I don't know.
is this like a text based? I think I don't know. Oh no, this is
It
just
looks awesome.
this is just like Pokemon sprite rips.
This reminds me of the
Doesn't
game
very-
I've been playing recently called My Singing Monsters,
Okay.
where It's like a really shitty phone game, but it's like you get monsters and eggs and you breed them with each other. I'm really into that kind of game.
Yeah.
And they each like area that you can like raise the monsters has like a different song, and they all it's sort of like an orchestra. Each monster has like a different timbre and like part that they sing.
Okay.
And then you can like compose, like you can use it as a DAW.
Like compose a whole soundtrack in there.
Yeah, like you can do like orchestral arrangements. Which is why I've put like 20 hours into it in like
Right.
a week.
Well, you need to have all the right animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Pokey Farm sort of has that energy.
That-
Raising and collecting and yeah.
But honestly, that gives me an idea. I feel like, why do we like sell like? I think guitar strings should be loot boxes. So you go to the guitar store and you buy strings, and
Amazing.
you're like, 6 more C strings. This sucks. I need a G so bad.
It's so good.
Oh my god!
You finally get the you finally get the E string you want, and then
Yeah.
as you're putting it on, it snaps.
Oh my!
Oh
That's
my god.
truly the worst. Like, we should. I think our life has become too convenient. I think everything in life should just be a loot box.
I love this concept as a violinist. Oh my god. Wait.
Right.
What if like every time you opened a new pack, like you had to use that to play music?
Right. Well, that's
Like,
all you have. What
break
else would you
it.
use?
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on how expensive the packs are.
Right. Right. Well, are you getting a regular pack or a premium pack?
Do you have the Stradivarius strings or the sheep guts,
Right.
whatever.
They got to release new sets, and as they rotate out, you're not going to be able to use your violin strings anymore until they add them back in.
Signed by Vivaldi in 1740.
You have to keep worrying about your old strings getting power crept, of course. Of like, these strings are really good, but the new ones are so much better that now they sound so bad next to my new ones. Yeah, it's just right. Just like, why is life convenient? Why is our life not more monetized? I want to go to a grocery store, pull a lever, and just groceries come out, and that's what I'm eating, I guess.
It should be like Chopped. It should be like an episode of Chopped every time you go to the grocery
Oh my
store.
god, that would be such a good game show.
Have you read Ubik by Philip K. Dick?
Did I?
There's a bit in that book where you're following the main character, and he wakes up in his home,
Yes.
and everything he goes around to do in his house charges him. So like he opens his fridge and it charges him, and his toaster charges him. And at the end, he spent all his money, and he goes to leave his house, and then he can't leave because his door needs to charge him like $2 to leave.
I do want to. I've read some, and I just, with my friend movie night, I just recently watched Scanner Darkly, which is still a wild looking film, like still kind of looks like nothing I've seen before or nothing I've seen since. Still,
Speaking of films, I wanted to emphasize.
Yeah.
I think this might not be obvious, but when you all mentioned Stalker, I am
Yes.
Kiri Joe in the chat.
yes, I did.
That was just a big moment for me. Anyway.
Yeah, Stalker's great.
It
Yeah.
is my example. Like when we were talking about like being in conversation with an artist, like another art piece. Like it's not like, I feel like in my life I will not try to make Stalker, but Stalker will like it. 90%, like you'll sometimes see me, Andrew, trying to work through Stalker in his brain of like a work that just like kind of deeply reached into my brain and just like lives there forever.
Yeah.
Oh, but anyway, I one thing I do want to write eventually is like, you know how like Rocky Horror is a classic example of things that people do during like watch along sort of things that it has a lot of ritual to it. I would want to write a book of like fake rituals for movies that don't have them, just like 20 movies and make up ritual as if they always existed.
I would write that with you if you wanted help.
It's something actually, Abby, that might be the thing that gets this thing done, where it's like a collaborative project where like people pick movies and like make up their own fake ritual for them.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea.
The
The drinking game.
Yes, you're right. You're right. It occupies that same drinking game space of like collaborative play and I always my main one that sticks in my brain of Stalker is that when they're all lying down, everyone in the movie theater just lies down and waits, and maybe you let dogs in the theater. you let the dogs off their leashes and they get to wander around while you all just kind of lie down and contemplate your life, your relationship to religion, all sorts of things.
You're not allowed to turn your phone on while you're watching the movie until the sepia color filter like turns off.
Right.
And then everyone's allowed to use their cell phones.
Right. Technology enters. You were contemplating your belief structure. Anyway, Stalker is like a fun thing. I could talk about this movie forever. Yeah. Because it just makes me think about things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get on that one.
If you like 2 hour long like. I mean, really, it's just an urban exploration movie, an urban exploration film at its core, and it is a weird way to describe it, but it kind of is.
And it really hammers home the fact that still water is dangerous.
Yes. Yes.
I've seen some of the director's other movies, but not the one that everyone talks about, of course.
Polaris, you mean?
I want to see some of the other ones.
I'm talking about his first movie. Oh god, I can't even remember what it's called now. I'm forgetting.
I want to see Solaris.
Yes,
good also.
right. I said it wrong. Solaris. What is Polaris? Is a different movie. It sounds like
I've got Solaris on my like to read list.
Yeah.
But I've had it for like a year, and it just stares at me every time I grab something else off my bookshelf.
And that's the secret of movies. Is those things only take 2 hours, maybe. Saves you all the hard time of reading a book. Oh, The Killer was. I mean, technically, The Killers is his very first work on here in his filmography. I believe I watched that, like his like student film version of The Killers. Criterion had a cool thing where it was like, here's like 6 versions of like adaptations of Hemingway's The Killers.
Oh, that is cool.
Really interesting.
They do they do good stuff. They do good work of like curated streaming services, which is really, maybe I'm biased towards streaming services, but or biased towards curation, but I think having like curation besides like horror or like what the algorithm thinks you want to watch.
Yeah. No, one of my favorite things about being in university is the weekly film society meetup, because they just vote on what film we're gonna watch, and then I go and watch it, and like 80% of the time it's something I never would have picked, but I have a great time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's a lot of time when I have our monthly, our semi-regular movie night with my friend. We'll often just like bounce movies back and forth. Of like, and sometimes there are some movies that are like, I would not consider to be like movies you would watch by yourself, or like it might be like interminable experiences watching by yourself, but are like fun if you watch them with other people. Like there's that kind of like schlockiness to them, where it's like it'd be hard to power through those. Zone of interest is within this slow cinema page. Do we need? Is there a slow games genre? I guess actually that's a lot of. I guess that's a lot of games, really. Right? We should claim that term as well. Slow gaming.
Like slow is so relative.
Right. But like I'm excited at the idea of games taking on like more abstract genre titles, that also like fit more into like the vibe of the experience of the game, not like how it plays. because there were all sorts of like the genre is a visual novel is an easy example of we have two people here who made visual novels whose games are not similar in the slightest.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about the itch space generally is that there are so many experiences you have that you would never get in a big commercial game because they're too afraid to like upset you or make you bored or
Right.
anything other than a constantly mostly positive emotion.
Right. That's like, I think it was extremely well stated during the pledge drive by friend of the show Bianca Del Mar, who had hosted like an experimental film workshop. Not work, I guess kind of workshop, but more just like a experimental film section. As a fan and like maker of those, she had like a preface of like, hey, if some of these movies or if experimental film in general sometimes like bores you or frustrates you or does something like that, maybe like think to yourself, maybe it's trying to do that, like sometimes like that's the intent of it. And I think sometimes like it can be hard to like get over that hump if people are like unfamiliar with that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, oh, this game is supposed to be really frustrating and I'm supposed to get upset with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh. And there is also, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up. There's a lot going on. Yeah, it's cool. I enjoy those kinds of things. And like I went to a bookstore the other day just like waiting for our restaurant to it was like apparently like 80 birthdays going on there. Their birthday song played like 6 times. But there was like a book club just like in a bookstore. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." They were just like setting up chairs and presumably that was like an in-store book club. And there's something cool to people just like hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes to go back to camp picking your friends. Sometimes your friends are shit, but sometimes it's neat to like limit yourself to the people who are near you.
Yeah.
Kind of like the limitation of choice of going. Oh, some of these people are really cool. But we're cresting over 2.5 hours of this show, which is a long amount of time for a single show to go on. And usually when I try to get these things close to wrapping up, so I am.
All right.
I'm closing all my tabs.
Yeah, I opened about 20 during the course of this as well.
That's what I always.
Tabs.
Usually whenever I'm talking to someone, I like to always be like looking at all their stuff, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is all, freewheeling, and I want to I don't want to forget anything, ever.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into the true wrap up, does anyone have any like non-promotional stuff they want to say, as we end towards the end of this point? Any burning questions? Any last minute statements?
I mean, as an adult, everything I say is now a promotion.
Yes, right. Can you say anything in your life that is non-promotional of being an adult challenge? Like, you have successfully fully monetized every aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that real oddness of all of that is kind of. I try to keep up on some of these. I'm very bad at using all this. Like social media especially has been like I follow people as business cards, if that makes sense. So I kind of being like, yes, hello, how are you doing? I saw you. I remembered you. I will put you here so I can think about you later again in the future.
Keep you in this little collection of who I'm following.
Right. Because sometimes I'll be like, oh, I want to talk to that person or invite them on the show or commission them for a game or for a cover or something. I'm like, I don't remember what they are, and I can scroll through there and go, oh yeah, that's who they were. Because I can't remember 80,000 names, But and also I guess to nominally pretend I'm in the video game industry, I guess, whatever that means.
Mm.
A big pretend on that, because it's a silly thing, and I wish never to be a part of it. But I do want games. It's the weird thing of like making game, like recognizing the industry as separate from the art, you know,
Mhm.
which I
Yeah,
feel like
well-
a lot of itch is, you know.
Yeah, I think within the ecosystem of itch, Indiepocalypse is very, very important. So
It is a weird thing, and I will sidestep compliments as I'm giving them publicly, of course. But I mean, really, that's only because like, I mean, the people making the games are like making like the coolest games you can find like in the indie space, like. I mean that's the strength of Indiepocalypse is the people like yourself, you know, the people making the games. And like I think like curation is important, I think, obviously, and I think that's why like there are people doing it, of course, but like they're easily ignored because they don't have big advertising budgets, and also like it still feels like the mainstream side of like game coverage is like does not have even like a toe inside of like the indie space, you know, or like the indies. You know what I mean? When the indie space, when I say the word indie, which is to say, people don't have $1 million to make a game. The more alternative side.
it's a niche within a niche.
Right,
so.
right. It's the kind of thing that like you wish itch had like the income and the budget to do like Bandcamp's level of like constant like promotion, that kind of thing. But yes, because like you imagine if there was like a like, you know, similar to Bandcamp, like if itch was like, you know, here's a blog post highlighting, you know, here's, you know, 10 games from like the Malaysian puzzle platformer scene, you know, kind of like what Bandcamp does of like, hey, here's 13 shoegaze bands from Colombia.
Yeah, they mostly they like to invisibly like boost things.
Yes. Yeah. And they do, and I think that I forget what the tab is called, but that first tab, like fresh or not the fresh one. I think the fresh one is algorithmic. Featured games. I think those are all handpicked.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the fresh ones are also handpicked. I feel like that one.
There may be a little bit of it, but I believe fresh is like a mixture of like maybe a little bit of that, and then a lot of like, I think someone was really was it Caden Ramstack, who was kind of like unpacked some of how the algorithm works. Basically, videos are huge. Video comments are huge in boosting things up. But also, I believe like things getting added to lists bump things up, which might account for like your increase in traffic. Like if it gets added to a list and I rate it 5 stars, and then other people do the same thing, it boosts it to the front page. If like sometimes before a day, but that, you know, on the front page, something that looks cool, people click on it and gets you there. But anyway, to wrap up this show, barring any immediate last minute, Indiepocalypse coin up. When did I start talking about? Okay, I was like, I didn't talk about Indiepocalypse. What is going on? I am. I've been co-opted into a crypto scheme when I wasn't paying attention.
It happens to the best of us.
I know. I wasn't even paying attention. But look forward to the Indiepocalypse rug pull that's coming up soon. What if I just advertised it as a rug pull, just very nakedly? Like, here's my plan. I'm gonna sell a coin. Anyway, we don't have time to talk about all of that. Anyhow, to fully wrap up, thank you all for being here. We're gonna get to promotions. Sky, hello. How's it going?
Hello, it's going well. Oh, is
It-
this the part where I'm supposed to promote things?
I'm gonna lead you. If people, we talked about a lot of your games, but if people want to find those games, hey, where can people go find those games?
Oh my god. Definitely not on itch.io. Or oh my god, I don't even know the link. Skyshard.itch.io.
Yes.
Definitely not there.
Do not go
Definitely
there.
not
Do
there.
not find a
Do
series
not go
of
there.
games
Horrible things.
handily listed by name, and we got some. I'm looking at your some of your. I love when people have like their little favorites collection, because you better believe I peek in those things, and look for games in there and different creators in there.
I gotta update that.
It's a cool little thing. And speaking of people's favorite creators and where to find them, Megan, hello. Where can people find
Hello.
your work if you're looking to find it?
Funnily enough, my games are on ozoneinteractive.itch.io. If you want to see my many other links, they're on linktree/ozoneinteractive. If you want to see me post once a month.
Ooh, that is, hey, as someone who posts 1, 2, 3, probably like 5 or 6 times a month, primarily to say, hey, I'm doing a radio show, or hey, there's a new episode coming out, or a new issue coming out. Basically saying, hey, I'm thinking the same thing. Or check out your, now for a second there, I thought you were in that. I was looking at After Journey's End. But yeah, those, speaking of cool journals and works of people's stuff,
Oh yeah, I love that journal.
Yeah.
It's great.
Just like cool, like not resources feels very corporate-y or whatever. You know what I mean? Like a living arts scene. It's very cool. Also helps like keep people within it. I think they can easily. Anyhow, we're not getting too distracted because we have one more thing. Abby, hello. Where can people find your games? Oh no, I accidentally copied the entire thing.
Well, so all of the games that are free that I made are on itch. There's a bunch of them. They're all sort of random and strange in their own ways. It's kirijo.itch.io, Kirijo.
Yes.
And then the Backcountry is available to wishlist on Steam, and it's called the Backcountry, and it's made by my company Dark Meadow, and you should wishlist it so that I can fight the Steam algorithm and win.
Yes. As I often do on this very show, when you can do that, you know what I did? I just hit add to your wish list. Folks, it's that easy.
Oh yeah.
I just did it.
Oh, and I post devlogs every month about the Backcountry on itch.
Yes.
So there's a special the Backcountry devlogs itch bubble that you can click on my itch.io.
Yeah. Look for that little waving alligator. Oh,
Yeah. Shout out to Sphere, my friend who did that. Anyway.
Yes, and of course, as always, you can find Indiepocalypse where else but Indiepocalypse.com. It's just my own damn website. Also on itch, of course, at pizzaprinks.itch.io if people prefer to buy things on itch.io. But you go there, you buy issues, you buy enough issues. Ooh! I'm very excited by. Oh, sorry, I was looking through. I was clearing out my notifications, and I'm very excited. Very excited by a game that was submitted. There are some games that I'm like, oh, I wish this person would submit this game, and then sometimes they do it, and I'm like, hell yeah. Anyway, I saw one of those. So, if a person happened to be listening and they go, I just submitted a game, and they're like, huh. I just submitted the game. Is they're talking about me? They might be. I feel like I see myself percolating a fun thing is to see myself percolating through like game dev scenes, you know. And much like you said, oh, my friend Camaro was submitted, and then I decided to submit. I'm seeing that happen again. I'm seeing these connections between past contributors and future submissions. But if you want to be one of those people, submit, of course, to indiepocalypse.com/submit. It's open. All you do is you add a game. It's super easy process. It costs no money, and you get some money if you are accepted. And then if people continue to purchase, say for instance issues 23, 48, 49, 61, the nice guests on this show will get at some point down the road like $5 to $6 through PayPal or their preferred service. Megan, you're very excited to learn that. You're still new, not used to the process of the Indiepocalypse emails of like, oh, look at that, $6 with a note that says Indiepocalypse.
Hell yeah.
You can get a sandwich or a drink, or maybe a matinee.
Hey, I was never expecting to get any drinks
Yes.
for Canada, so it's very exciting.
Yes, I mean, one of the true crimes. See, like, bought a pizza with Indiepocalypse money last month. Perfect way to spend Indiepocalypse money. Like, there's a terrifying number of people who say that Indiepocalypse was either the most and or the first time they ever got paid for their games, and I'm like, you people make such good games. How can this happen? It's a crime upon the art form of video games. But I'm thinking of a new slogan being Indiepocalypse, not the best paying game in town, but the fastest paying game in town. I'm hoping, like, if you submit your form and I'm at the right time on my computer, and you fill out that like contributor or that like form that says I'm going to be in this thing, sometimes you get paid 5 minutes later. If I'm sitting on my computer, I'm not doing anything urgent. That all said, Sky, Megan, Abby, and the absent Nicholas, thank you all for being here today. Glad to have you on both the zine and on the show. I love to hang out with people, you know.
Yeah.
This
Totally.
is lovely.
We are.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you all here. I'm gonna go to our outro and head out, and I may purchase a pizza of my own. Goodbye, everyone.